The former police officer charged with killing Daunte Wright during a traffic stop earlier this year is in jail tonight, convicted on 2 charges of manslaughter. Back with me, my panel of legal experts, veteran prosecutor and BNC's legal contributor Paul Henderson, and criminal defense attorneys Sam Braverman and Ryan Jones. Let's talk about something that happened right after the verdict was read. The judge ordered Kim Potter to be taken into custody and held without bail until sentencing. The defense requested Potter to be released on bail, however. Here's part of their argument to the court.
Her remorse and regret for the incident is overwhelming. She's not a danger to the public whatsoever. She has made all her court appearances, including all appearances in the court. It is the Christmas holiday season. She's a devoted Catholic, no less, and there is no point to incarcerate her at this point in time because A, you haven't decided what the sentence is going to be. B, the dispositional departure arguments are quite strong on this case. And C, it's not necessary for the preservation of public safety.
Kudos to the judge for not only denying their request, but for making it clear to the defense that she can't treat this case any differently than she would any other case, something they clearly were asking her to do. Paul, your reaction to the defense's request?
You know, as they were making that request, I was feeling sympathetic and was feeling bad for her. I had to remind myself again, and this is, I think, an important conversation, that it's not her character that we are discussing. That's not the issue. The issue is, and this is a very important reminder that is tied up in that decision on whether or not she gets released, is that she pulled a weapon, and the wrong weapon, and killed an unarmed Black boy. That's what the verdict represents. And so to ask to have her released, and although they did make some very good arguments about it, one of the things that we didn't hear discussed fully was the fact that she doesn't even live in the state. And were this any other defendant, and this is why the judge ruled the way that she ruled, she would not release another defendant under those circumstances. And so she's not going to release Kim Potter under the circumstances. I believe that was the right decision, and it affirmed the jury's verdict. And it affirmed that the tragedy from the mistake was actually illegal, was actually criminal. So those were my feelings.
Ryan, this was a long shot. I mean, the defense knew better, but they have to advocate for their client. Your thoughts?
Look, I thought they did what they should try to do best, and that's advocate, as you mentioned. The holiday season, I thought that was interesting, appealing to the heartstrings of maybe a judge and those watching. However, the judge stood firm. She stood on precedent and principle and made a decision, again, knowing that that would come under some great scrutiny during a time where we're having a family overcome grief. So, again, I follow up with Paul and just say that I believe she made the right decision and she avoids criticism, but now the defense counsel has to have their arguments scrutinized here.
Sam, it's the Christmas holiday and she's a devout Catholic, is what the defense attorney said in court. Your thoughts to his request to have her released on bail for the holidays?
You play the cards that you're dealt, and that's the cards that defense attorneys have. I will recall that one time I tried a robbery case. My guy was a great bail risk. He gets convicted. Judge remands him. I said, Judge, why are you remanding my guy? He says, Sam, if the jury convicts this young man and then they get in the elevator with him on the way home, they think the system's broken. And you can't have that. That's just not the way it's allowed to work. And so therefore, your client has to go to jail today. And that's the way it goes. And if this judge says for a manslaughter 1 conviction, everybody goes to jail, and the system says you convict somebody of killing somebody, you're going to jail. This is a lot for the education of others. That's why we publicize these things. That's why there are public trials. That's why there's a 6th Amendment, so that everybody takes something from this. And that's an essential aspect of the system. Whether or not she's a great risk of flight, which she probably is, nonetheless, that's the rules. She goes in.
I have a feeling that they would have made the same request even if it wasn't the holiday season. So, all right, guys, stay tuned for more reaction and that February sentencing for Kim Potter when we come back. This is Making the Case. Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter was taken into custody and held without bail after a jury came back with guilty verdicts on charges of first and second degree manslaughter today for the shooting death of 20-year-old Daunte Wright during a traffic stop back in April. With a conviction on the most serious charge of first degree manslaughter, which carries a maximum penalty of 15 years in prison, that's what Potter could be facing at her sentencing scheduled for February 18th. Back with me, my team of lawyers, Paul Henderson, Sam Braverman, and Ryan Jones. I want to talk about one of the key players in this case, starting with Judge Regina Chu. Let's listen to some of her closing remarks to the jury this afternoon.
Members of the jury, when you first came into the courtroom, I told you that jurors are the heroes of our judicial system. Well, the 12 of you are our heroes in this case. You did your duty. I'm so proud of you. You should be proud of yourselves. Without civic-minded citizens like you, our system of justice could not function.
Paul, how would you grade this judge, especially given the controversy over the judge who presided over the Kyle Rittenhouse trial?
Like night and day. I found her to be credible. I found her to be peaceful. I found her to be encouraging and clear. But really, it was her calmness and her decided rulings that permeated the entirety of this trial that I grew to rely upon, that I would hear clear communications from her, that she would not be reactive, that she was diligent and focused. I was almost clapping when she made that speech to the juries, because I did feel like it left them as they entered the holidays feeling like they did stand up, they did do a hard thing, and they did the right thing. So I liked that speech. I liked her presentation. I thought she was a calming force during this trial and kept it from becoming a show or out of control from advocates yelling and screaming in ways that we have seen in the past recent months from other trials. And so I thought she did a very good job, and I look forward to hearing whatever her next case is.
Any thoughts from you, Sam, on this judge's performance over this trial?
Sure. Well, the Rittenhouse judge was a disgrace in every respect. So there's nothing you can say that's good about his presentation. I certainly hope that Judge Chu gave that comment before she knew what the verdict was. I don't like it when a judge compliments the jury after the judge has discovered the verdict, because it sounds like the judge is complimenting them on their verdict. And a judge should go out of their way to say, whatever verdict you decide, that's your choice. And it's our right to say we may agree or disagree, but your vote counts. So I think she is very measured. I'm always a little skeptical of somebody who has to read a note that says thank you very much. And if she's honest, she can tell them. But all that being said, I agree with Paul completely. It was a measured approach to a trial. It was a measured approach to ruling. It's what judges are supposed to be. The clown that we saw in the Rittenhouse trial is exactly what they're not supposed to be. And sometimes they get far more credit for being a judge than they should. She was what a judge is supposed to be.
All right, let's move on to the prosecution team. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison led this case along with two prosecutors, Matthew Frank and Aaron Eldridge, who also secured the conviction in the Derek Chauvin case. Ryan, the AG's office is now 2 for 2. What do you make of their style of prosecuting cases, and will this lead to more officer-related cases being referred outside of local DA offices?
I'll take the first part of that question and saying having them referred out, I can't speculate because they've done such a great job here. And I have to applaud Keith Ellison and his team. He's done a great job also offsetting any of the blowback, as you mentioned before, by saying, hey, look, keep doing your job. This isn't an indictment of policing. We're just holding everyone accountable. And these prosecutors, being the people who hold the keys to the jail cells, are making sure that it's justice and served equitably, no matter who the defendants are. I was concerned with the initial charges because I thought the first count was going to be hard for them to meet. However, they were able to meet it. And given the tone, and as you mentioned, them being 2 for 2 recently, that first case with Derek Chauvin kind of maybe paved the way for their success here.
All right, we talked about Keith Ellison. I want to listen to something else he had to say in a news conference after today's verdict. Take a listen.
My thoughts are also with those who work in law enforcement and public safety. We hold you in high regard, and we also hold you to high standards. We don't want you to be discouraged. Your community respects and appreciates you. We want you to uphold the highest ideals of our society and ideals of safety. And when a member of your profession is held accountable, it does not diminish you. In fact, it shows. It shows the whole world that those of you who enforce the law are also willing to live by it. And that's a good thing. It restores trust, faith, and hope.
Paul, I want to ask you this question because I know you work with officers closely even now. What do these verdicts actually mean for Black and brown communities as well as the law enforcement community? Because I spoke to Antonio Romanucci, the Wright family attorney, and I talked about how this could be yet another blow to law enforcement. It could be seen as an indictment on law enforcement. It could cause a lot of officers to feel discouraged by this verdict.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I think that it stands for the proposition that we are moving towards reforming law enforcement. That law enforcement can play a good role, but that role has to be race neutral. So in order for this verdict to be consequential, and I think that it is, but it merely is accountability in this case and under these circumstances. The bigger issue is that this case must lead to reform so that we can institutionalize policies to address race disparities in policing, because today African Americans are still more than 3 times likely to be killed from interactions with police encounters. And so if this case leads to addressing that with the George Floyd bill, with changes at a state and local level, then that's the win that we all have to work towards and move towards.
All right, guys, stay with us as we take a look ahead in this case.